While filming the first X-Men movie, Hugh Jackman accidentally stabbed the Mystique stunt woman in the arm with his claws. Jackman says the wound was pretty significant, with blood immediately pouring out. But to everyone's surprise, the stunt woman looked at the gaping hole in her arm and yelled, "Yes, I've been stabbed by Wolverine." The first recorded autopsy was performed on Julius Caesar in 44 BC to determine which of the 23 stab wounds had killed him. It was found to be a chest wound that severed his aorta. In 1908, the New York Times reported a story about a dog that would constantly push kids into the Seine River in order to earn treats for saving them. In 1986, nurse Sandra Clark had to leave an elderly patient who asked her to stay. When she returned, the patient had died alone and Sandra was devastated. So in 2001, she helped start a program called No One Dies Alone, where volunteers sit with terminal patients who have no one else to provide them with comfort in their final moments. When Brian Peck was on trial for sexually abusing Drake Bell in 2003, there were 41 letters written to the judge by friends, family, and colleagues who were defending Peck. Some claim that Peck must have been facing major temptation or had been pressured and pushed beyond belief to have done any of the abuse. Drake and Josh director Rich Carell and stage manager Beth Carell both allegedly wrote letters in Peck's defense, with Rich Carell saying it would be his pleasure to work with Peck again. Peck pleaded no contest to 2 charges of child sex abuse and was ordered to register as a sex offender after serving 16 months in prison. But astonishingly, after his release, Peck was almost immediately hired to work on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody thanks to a legal loophole, which allowed him to work on children's productions as long as he wasn't working directly with the kids. After being involved with production for almost an entire year, Peck was eventually fired when Disney executives learned of his tainted past. According to his memoir, when Vice President J.D. Vance was 12 years old, his drug-addicted mother was once driving erratically and threatened to crash her car to kill them both. J.D. had no choice but to jump out of the speeding vehicle and run to a nearby house for help. He now refers to this event as a turning point in his life, since it prompted him to move in with his non-abusive grandmother and work towards a more stable life. Gordon Ramsay's father was a violent alcoholic who regularly abused he and his mother. One of his favorite things to do was to call Gordon a gay little boy because cooking was for poofs. He became so aggressive at times that Gordon and his mom often feared for their lives while at home. In 2017, a 9 weeks pregnant Brazilian woman suffered a stroke and was declared legally dead. Although doctors said the babies had no hope for survival, the brain-dead woman was kept alive for 123 days before delivering a healthy pair of twins. After growing up with a chronically bloated stomach, Sanju Bhagat went to the ER in 2006 with severe abdominal pain and difficulty breathing. Doctors were astonished to discover that the twin he must have absorbed in utero was still living in his abdomen and surviving off his blood supply. The half-formed twin had limbs, long fingernails, hair, and even genitalia. Doctors eventually removed the parasite and Bhagat made a full recovery. As a child star, Drew Barrymore was thrust into the dark side of Hollywood at a very young age. Her mother started bringing her to dance clubs when she was only 9 years old, letting her dance with older men and even use hard drugs. She understandably struggled to cope with this extremely early exposure to adult vices, since she was forced into a 6-month rehab program by the age of 13, and then spent the next 18 months in a mental hospital after attempting to take her own life. After a tiger escaped from a Georgia zoo and killed a man in 2015, a PSA was issued on what not to do if you ever encounter a tiger. Don't approach it, don't run away, and definitely don't urinate. In an attempt to escape a forceful arranged marriage with her cousin, 21-year-old Pakistani woman Asia Bibi poisoned a container of milk at a family party, hoping that only her fiancé would drink it. But instead, it was used by Bibi's mother-in-law to make a dessert drink for the entire family. It was then served to 27 members of Bibi's family, killing 17 of them. According to a 2014 investigation, the car that Paul Walker died in had tires that were 9 years old. This likely contributed to Paul's racer friend losing control while driving around a corner at 93 miles per hour. It's a tragic example of why you should always change your tires after 6 years no matter how much they've been used. Roughly 200 people die on cruise ships each year, especially on those that carry a lot of seniors. So most ships have a small morgue on board prepared to store up to 10 bodies. In 2002, 13-year-old hockey fan Brittany Cecil was sitting in the stands of a Blue Jackets game when a deflected puck struck her in the temple, fracturing her skull. She died just 2 days before her birthday and remains the only fan fatality in NHL history. In 1977, Muhammad Ali endured quite the beating in his 15-round fight with Ernie Shavers, one of the hardest-hitting boxers in history. Ali suffered so much brain damage that his speaking rate was permanently slowed down by 16% after the fight. Geoffrey Hudson was a courtier for King Charles I of England who was only 18 inches tall. After being insulted by an average-sized man in 1644, Geoffrey challenged him to a duel with pistols. His opponent came to the duel only armed with a water gun as a joke. But Hudson didn't take too kindly to this and fatally shot him in the forehead with a real gun. During a drug-fueled rampage in 2001, the Prince of Nepal killed 9 members of his family, including the King and Queen, at Kathmandu's National Palace. The prince then turned the gun on himself in an attempt to take his own life, then fell into a coma. As heir to the throne, the crown prince escaped any charges and was instead declared King of Nepal, but he only reigned for 3 days in the hospital before being declared brain dead and unfit to serve. Mark Wahlberg was addicted to cocaine by the age of 13 and had committed at least 20 criminal offenses by the time he turned 21. In 1988, he was arrested for the unprovoked racist attack of 2 Vietnamese Americans and left one of the victims blind. Marky Mark was initially charged with attempted murder, but only ended up serving 45 days in prison since he was only 16. Here's a video of professional violinist Dagmar Turner playing her instrument while doctors removed a tumor from her brain. They asked her to play the violin during the surgery to ensure that her musical abilities weren't damaged by the delicate procedure. In 2017, an American man consumed a ghost pepper in an eating contest and had to drink 6 glasses of water to cool off. He then vomited so many times that he tore a hole in his esophagus and was rushed to the emergency room where doctors found his left lung had nearly collapsed. He spent 23 days in the hospital and was sent home with a gastric tube. Within the walls of Alcatraz, Al Capone's brain completely melted due to untreated neurosyphilis. It got to the point where he would throw his feces at the other inmates and was paroled early because he was deemed too much of a lost cause to be a threat. When he died at the age of 48, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. While Charles Darwin is famous for his work on evolution, he also killed and tasted every species of animal that he discovered. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. In 2012, Anthony Hensley was kayaking in Illinois when he went to check on a swan that was becoming aggressive toward him, causing him to fall out of his kayak. As Anthony tried swimming back to shore, the swan kept relentlessly attacking him until the man sadly drowned. In the 1920s, there was a health drink called Radithor that literally contained radium mixed with water. Its manufacturer claimed the radioactive drink not only provided energy, but also cured a host of ailments including cancer and depression. But the drink was eventually pulled from shelves in 1932 when it started causing its customers' jaws to fall off. While working as a doctor in Canada, John Schneeberger drugged and sexually assaulted one of his patients as well as his own stepdaughter. But he was able to evade arrest for years by implanting a plastic tube in his arm that was filled with another man's blood. The Burnden Park disaster was a human crush that occurred in 1946 at Burnden Park Football Stadium in England. Overcrowding resulted in the deaths of 33 people and injuries to hundreds more. The bodies were then left on the sidelines covered with coats, and the game was later resumed and finished with the corpses still on the field. While Keanu Reeves was filming The Matrix, his daughter was stillborn at 8 months. The tragedy caused he and his girlfriend to break up shortly just before she was killed in a car crash. Since then, he's donated most of his earnings from movies and has avoided serious relationships and having kids. During tests in many South Korean schools, access to rooftops are required to be locked. This is because students have been known to throw themselves off the roof due to the pressure of the exam. Bella and Edward's relationship throughout the Twilight series meets all 15 official criteria for an abusive relationship. Male dolphins have been known to violently rape female dolphins in groups. They've also been observed killing dolphin calves so that the calf's mother will feel more inclined to mate with them. Ignaz Semmelweis was the doctor who discovered that washing your hands prevents the spread of many diseases. but since this went against the popular medical opinion of the time, he was committed to a mental asylum where he was beaten so badly that he ended up dying of gangrene from the wounds.